Hello Math 7. Today's lesson is lesson 75. And in this lesson you're going to be writing fractions and decimals as percents. Remember, fractions, decimals, and percents are cousins and they kind of work interchangeably. You can go back and forth between them with just a few steps, usually. So let's first start with decimals, okay? So when you have a decimal, let's say 0.3, to change a decimal into a percent, it's all about moving the decimal place. To change it as a percent, you go forward or to the right, 2 places, 1, 2, which would give you 30%. To take that percent and change it to a decimal, you take the decimal place, which is right there. If it's not there, if there is no decimal, it's assumed that it's right there after the last number. And you move it 2 backwards or to the left, 2 to the left. So that brings us back to 0.3. Let's say we have 0.75. We want to change this decimal to a percent. So we move it 2 to the right, which gives us 75%. If we want to change it back to a decimal, we take the decimal and we move it 2 to the left, 0.75. Let's do it a couple more. If we have 0.5, there's only one number there, but we still have to move the decimal place 2 places to the right to change it to a percent. 1, 2. We fill in that missing spot with a 0. That gives us 50%. To change that back to a decimal, we go 2 backwards or 2 to the left. 1, 2. 0.5. Okay? That's how you change decimals or turn decimals into percents. Fractions are a little bit trickier. There are some shortcuts for some fractions, not all. I'll show you a couple of shortcuts first of all. So let's say you have any number over the number 10. You would read this as 3/10. Remember, as a decimal, 3/10 just means that the 3 would be in the tenths place. Is that in the tenths place? Yes, it is, because it goes tenths, hundreds, thousandths. So if you have any number over the number 10, it's really easy to convert it to a decimal. You just put the number on top in the tenths place. So let's say you had 5 over 10. We put the number on top in the tenths place, so 0.5. If you had 9 over 10, you put the decimal, or you put the number on the top in the tenths place. Another easy one is if you have a number over 100. So if we have 42 over 100, we simply put that number in the hundreds place. So 0.42 is how you'd start, and then you'd count tenths, hundreds. Sure enough, that's it. Or remember, you can count your zeros. 1, 2, so 2 places, 2 numbers, 2 zeros, 2 numbers. So this would be 0.42 as a decimal. If we had 56 over 100, it would simply be 0.56. If you had 78 over 100, it would simply be 0.78. So those are easy ones, but what about the not so easy ones? Let's say you get something like this. You get 4 over 5. How do you convert that to a decimal? That you actually need to do the long way, and you need to divide. Remember that this number, or this line here, can also mean divide. So this is read 4/5 or 4 over 5, but you can also say 4 divided by 5. So you're going to write it exactly how you say it. If I say it 4 divided by 5, I'm going to write it 4 divided by 5. So this is how I'd write it. 4 divided by 5. And then we just divide. Can 5 go into 4? Absolutely not. So we put a 0 up there. we have a problem. There's no more numbers. So we have to add a decimal here and a decimal there and add a 0. Can 5 go into 40? Absolutely. 8 times evenly. 5 times 8 is 40. Subtract it, you get 0. So 4/5 as a decimal is 0.8. Let's do another one. 2/5. Please write that as a decimal. It's not over a 10, it's not over 100, so we're going to have to do it the long way and divide. 2 divided by 10. Remember, write it exactly how you say it. 2 divided by 10, 2 divided by 5, 2 divided by 5. Can 5 go into 2? No. We add our decimals, and we add a 0. Can 5 go into 20? Yes, it can. 4 times evenly. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract it, you get 0. So 2/5 is 0.4. Let's do one more. Let's do 6/7. It's not over 10, it's not over 100, so it's not an easy one. We have to divide it. 6 divided by 7 is 6 divided by 7. Can 7 go into 6? Nope. So we put a 0. We add our decimals. Let's extend that a little bit and add a 0. Can 7 go into 60? Yes, it can. 8 times. 7 times 8 is 56. We subtract it. We have to borrow from the 6. It turns into a 10. That brings a 4. Well, we have to add another 0 and bring it down. Can 7 go into 40? Yes, it can. 5 times. 7 times 5 is 35. Borrow from the 4. That becomes a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. Bring down another 0. Can 7 go into 50? Yes, it can. 7 times. 49. 10. Bring down another 0. Can 7 go into 10? Yes, it can. 1 time. We'll go over here, which is 30. And we would keep going either until it repeats or until you have your answer. Okay? So that is how you turn fractions and decimals, or fractions into decimals. Now, let's go back a little bit. Once you have your fraction into your decimal, now you can change it into your percent. So, move this 2 to the right, it would be 80%. Okay? So, let's do the whole process. Let's go 3 divided by 12. Okay? So we have 3 divided by 12. Can 12 go into 3? No. Add our decimals. Add a 0. Can 12 go into 30? Whoops. Yes, it can. 2 times, which is 24. Borrow. Subtract. Add another 0. Bring it down. Can 12 go into 60? 5 times evenly. So our decimal for 3/12 is 0.25, but what would our percent be? 1, 2, 25%. So for fractions, you first have to change it to a decimal, and then you can convert it to a percent. For these easy ones, 3/10, the decimal would be 0.3, the percent would be 1, 2, 30%. For 20/100, the decimal would be 0.20, and then the percent would be 20%. Okay, that's it. Good luck.